The Galactic Council chamber was vast and cold, stretching high into the artificial sky. Light reflected off the polished floors and the walls shimmered with strange alien symbols. Delegates from hundreds of worlds sat around a long oval table. Each of them was unique in shape and color, some tall and thin, others short and bulky, some with scales or fur, others with smooth skin that glowed faintly. Yet despite their differences, all of them shared one thing: a quiet arrogance. Humans had been part of the council for less than a century, yet their influence had grown faster than anyone expected. Their technology, their ships, and their strategies had turned them into a power no one could ignore. And still, many of the older council members looked at the humans with a mixture of irritation and disbelief. At the far end of the chamber, the human delegation stood quietly. Ethan Cole, the ambassador, was tall and steady, with sharp brown eyes that seemed to look straight through the crowd. Beside him stood Laura Davis, a scientist whose reputation across human colonies was unmatched. She wore a calm expression, though her hands clenched lightly at her sides. Behind them, human aides and officers stood in disciplined lines, the only humans in the room who dared to move with complete confidence. The discussion had already gone on for hours. Alien voices, harsh and melodic, clashed in a chorus of complaints and demands. The humans listened, rarely interrupting, but now, the topic had turned directly toward Earth's influence. High Chancellor Drixa, a tall, green-scaled alien with sharp claws, leaned forward and hissed, "Your species has grown too fast. Your ships are too powerful. Your colonies spread like wildfire. The Council will limit your rights. You will give up control of the trade routes and withdraw your fleets from several sectors." Ethan's eyes did not waver. "You have never understood us," he said softly. His voice carried clearly across the chamber. "We do not take what is not offered freely. We do not fight without reason. But make no mistake, if you push us too far, humanity will act in its own interest, whether you like it or not." Laura stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We came here to work together, to share knowledge, to protect the galaxy. But if the Council no longer values that, then perhaps the problem is not with us." The room fell silent for a moment. Some delegates whispered to each other, their voices filled with nervous concern. Others, like Commander Vurex of the Kral Dominion, a towering creature with thick gray armor-like skin, scowled. "You threaten the Council?" Vurex growled. "Do you know what happens to species that defy the Council?" Ethan shook his head slightly. "We do not threaten. We simply state the truth. We have grown strong not because of fear, but because of restraint. And restraint can only last so long when it is met with arrogance." A murmur spread through the chamber. The council members had never heard humans speak like this. Other species tended to bow, argue endlessly, or show submission. Humans were different. They were direct, unafraid, and unyielding. High Chancellor Drixa slammed a clawed hand on the table, rattling the alien documents. "You will obey the Council's decision, or face consequences." Ethan's jaw tightened. "If this is how you see us, then you can face the galaxy without us. We will no longer participate in a council that refuses to act fairly. If you expect us to stay silent while the galaxy collapses under your poor decisions, you are mistaken." Laura put a hand lightly on Ethan's shoulder. "It is time," she whispered. He nodded. The human delegation turned as one and began walking toward the chamber doors. The sound of their boots echoed sharply across the marble floors. Alien eyes widened, tentacles twitched, wings flexed nervously. For the first time in council history, humans were walking out of a session and no one knew what to do. The room grew still. The sound of the human footsteps faded as they passed through the doors. Silence fell like a heavy weight. For years, the council had relied on humans to stabilize fragile alliances, provide military support, and maintain trade routes. Now those humans had walked out and no one could predict what would happen next. In the council chamber, whispers grew into panic. "Did they mean it?" a Zelthar delegate asked. "They cannot survive without our networks," another argued. But others shook their heads. "It is not their survival we should worry about," said a small, pale being with translucent skin and 3 eyes. "It is our survival. They do not fear us. They fear nothing." Meanwhile, Ethan and Laura stepped out into the corridor. The walls here were lined with displays showing images of the galaxy, trade routes, colonies, fleets, and planets. Ethan's eyes scanned the glowing maps. "This is bigger than them," he said softly. "They will feel the absence quickly, faster than they expect," Laura nodded. "And when they do, they will come to their senses. Not out of respect, but because they need us. The galaxy cannot function without humanity." They reached the human shuttle waiting in the docking bay. Inside, Admiral Samantha Ross stood at the control console, her hands resting lightly on the panels. She looked up as they entered. "Shall we go?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Yes. Let them see what happens when humans stop participating. Let them learn the cost of arrogance." The shuttle lifted smoothly into space, leaving the council world behind. From orbit, the bright lights of Verelian Prime shrank to a dot. Inside the shuttle, the humans spoke little, but every mind was busy. Fleet positions, supply lines, communication systems, all the threads that connected human colonies across the galaxy were under review. Hours later, as the shuttle crossed into uncharted space, Laura spoke again. "Do you ever worry, Ethan? About what might happen if we leave for too long?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Every leader worries, Laura, but this is not fear. It is observation. We watch, we wait, and we act only when necessary. The galaxy believes it can manage without us. Soon it will learn differently." Back in the council chamber, chaos began in earnest. Reports came in from trade stations where human cargo fleets had withdrawn. Communications networks once maintained by human engineers went dark. Entire colonies reliant on human technology for power and defense shut down to avoid disasters. Commander Vurix banged his fist on the table again. "They cannot do this. This is impossible." He looked to High Chancellor Drixa for reassurance. Drixa's face, usually calm and commanding, now showed the slightest flicker of fear. Outside the chamber, smaller delegates whispered among themselves. "They left," one said, "and they do not plan to return." A few even suggested sending ships to force humans back, but no one volunteered to lead the mission. The humans' reputation for strategy, speed, and power was legendary. No one wanted to be the first to face them alone. In the silence, some delegates began to grasp the real danger. Humans were not just participants, they were the backbone of the council systems. Without them, the alliances would crumble, trade would fail, and security would vanish. Ethan and Laura, now far from the council world, looked out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of life, conflict, and opportunity. "They always underestimate humans," Laura said quietly. Ethan shook his head. "Yes, they do, and they always will. But this time, underestimating us might cost them more than they can imagine." The human fleet moved silently, invisible to most sensors, yet ready for anything. They had left not out of anger, but out of principle. Humanity had chosen restraint for decades, often forgiving council mistakes, often covering for failures. Now humans were giving the galaxy a warning, and it was a warning no one could ignore. For the first time, the aliens understood a terrifying truth. Humans were not like other species. They were patient, clever, and restrained, but they could also act decisively, and when they did, consequences were swift and unavoidable. Ethan turned back to the shuttle control panels. "Prepare to monitor every council system," he ordered. "We will not intervene yet, but we will watch, and we will act if necessary. Humanity is done asking politely." Laura nodded, her eyes reflecting the distant glow of stars. "And when the galaxy finally understands what it lost, it will be too late to change anything." And so, humanity walked out. Not with anger, not with threats, but with quiet certainty. The Galactic Council panicked, and the galaxy itself began to tremble, unaware that the humans had already begun to write a new chapter in the history of the stars. In space, silence stretched, but in that silence humans were already moving. Plans were being made. Fleets were being readied. And somewhere in the vastness, a new order waited to take shape, one where the galaxy would learn, the hard way, what it meant to underestimate humanity. The galaxy was quiet, but it was not peace. The absence of humans was already being felt in ways that no one could have predicted. Systems that had relied on human technology and guidance began to falter. Trade routes once maintained by human engineers grew chaotic. Planets that depended on human fleets for protection were suddenly exposed to pirates and rival factions. On the council world of Verelian Prime, panic had grown into fear. High Chancellor Drixa paced her chamber, claws clicking against the polished floor. Beside her, Commander Vurix slammed a heavy fist onto the table. "How long can this last?" he demanded. The humans left. We cannot force them back. Our systems are failing. Drixa shook her head. We cannot act, not yet. Every attempt to strike or negotiate has failed. They have retreated into their own space and they control it completely. A young Zelthar delegate, pale-skinned with 3 eyes, looked worried. Our trade stations are collapsing. Cargo ships report chaos in every sector. If we do not act soon, our economies will collapse. And the smaller species, they will starve or fight each other for resources. Across the galaxy, similar reports poured in. Human colonies once interconnected with the Council went silent. Supply lines for energy, food, and defense vanished. Systems built by humans simply stopped working. Within weeks, small skirmishes erupted into larger conflicts as alien factions fought over abandoned territory. Ethan Cole watched the situation unfold from the command deck of the human flagship, the Starship Horizon. Alongside him, Laura Davis monitored communications. They think we are gone, she said. They do not realize that we are still watching everything. Ethan nodded. They will soon understand. Patience is a human strength, but it has limits. They are about to learn that their reliance on us was not optional. Admiral Samantha Ross moved among the control stations, giving quiet orders. Human fleets previously scattered to maintain Council obligations were now regrouped in secret. New defensive systems had been installed across colonies. Sensor networks and communication grids had been upgraded. Earth itself had become a hub of efficiency and planning, preparing quietly for what might come. In one distant sector, a small fleet of alien ships tried to claim a system previously maintained by humans. The fleet moved quickly, confident in their numbers, but they found the system dead. Defense grids powered down left them vulnerable, but human intelligence had anticipated this. Mines and traps long invisible activated at precise moments. The fleet was destroyed almost entirely. Only a few ships managed to escape, sending panicked messages back to the Council. Back on Varelian Prime, the Council received these messages. The delegates were silent at first, stunned. They were not even here, Drixa whispered. How did they do this? Laura Davis spoke quietly to Ethan on the horizon. They are panicking. Their arrogance is cracking. It is only a matter of time before they come to terms with reality. Ethan nodded. We are not striking, not yet. We are letting the galaxy feel the consequences of its own choices. They asked for it. In the months that followed, the galaxy's dependence on humanity became painfully clear. Trade collapsed. Borders became unsafe. Rogue factions and pirates attacked unchecked. Alien species that had once considered themselves strong realized how weak they were without human oversight. On one small world, the Virexans struggled to maintain order. Commander Vurick stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching transmissions of border battles and supply line failures. This cannot continue, he muttered. We must call the humans back. They are the only ones capable of controlling this chaos. The Council attempted to form a replacement force, but coordination failed repeatedly. Alien fleets fought among themselves, arguing over leadership and strategy. Plans fell apart due to lack of experience and internal rivalries. Every attempt to stabilize sectors without human oversight ended in disaster. Meanwhile, humans continued their quiet preparations. Ethan and Laura worked closely with Samantha Ross to monitor Council movements. They calculated each system's dependence on human technology, predicting where failures would occur first. In one of the Council's neutral zones, refugees from collapsing planets gathered. Starships crowded with families carrying as much food and supplies as possible. Without humans to regulate travel and provide protection, chaos reigned. Aliens had expected humans to stay, to maintain order, but their absence created a vacuum the galaxy could not fill. Ethan reviewed the data with Laura. The Council does not yet understand what they have lost, he said. They will eventually realize it, but by then it will be too late to restore the systems without us. Laura frowned. Do you ever worry we might have to step in sooner than we want? Ethan shook his head. No, intervention is not our goal. Observation is. Let them fail. Let them see that humanity's presence was never about domination. It was about stability. When they finally understand, they will respect us differently. On Earth, human engineers and scientists worked tirelessly. Colonies were reinforced. Defense systems upgraded. Energy grids became more efficient. Humanity had withdrawn from the Council, but they were not idle. They were preparing for a future where they could control their own destiny while watching the galaxy struggle. In a remote sector, a small alien fleet attempted to bypass the human blockade of a former trade route. Sensors detected the fleet instantly. Without human oversight, the fleet could have passed, but hidden defense systems activated. Mines exploded in precise sequences, disabling several ships instantly. Panic spread through the remaining vessels. The message was clear. Humans were still present and they were watching. Back at the council chambers, the panic was growing. Delegates argued constantly. "We underestimated them," said one. "We cannot survive without their guidance," another replied. High Chancellor Drix's normally calm voice shook. "We must send envoys to Earth," she said, but no one wanted to volunteer. The humans' reputation for strategy and power had become frightening. Ethan watched all of this quietly from the horizon. "They are learning," he said. "Slowly, painfully, but they are learning. They believed they could ignore us. They cannot." Laura looked at the data stream, seeing failures across hundreds of systems. "It is almost beautiful," she said softly. "The galaxy thought it was stable without us. Now it is unraveling." Admiral Samantha Ross moved along the deck. "Keep monitoring. Track every council fleet. Watch the borders. Let the chaos play out. Humanity will not intervene until it is necessary, but we will be ready for anything." As weeks turned into months, the council tried desperately to restore order. Envoys were sent, messages dispatched, but the humans did not respond. Entire sectors were left in disorder. Refugees crowded neutral worlds. Alien economies teetered on collapse. And everywhere humans watched silently, calculating, prepared. Ethan and Laura discussed the future in the quiet of the command deck. "When do we intervene?" Laura asked. Ethan considered it. "Only when it becomes clear that failure will destroy systems permanently. Otherwise, the lesson must be learned. They must understand that humanity's patience was never infinite." In a distant corner of the galaxy, Commander Vurick sent another desperate message to the humans. "We beg you, return. Without you, the galaxy is lost." Ethan read it, then placed it in the secure file. "They do not understand yet," he said. "And they will not understand until they have felt the full cost of leaving humanity behind." And so the galaxy struggled. Chaos spread. Systems failed. Trade routes collapsed. Alien species fought among themselves. Pirates took advantage of the confusion. Entire colonies were isolated, dependent only on whatever resources they had stocked. Yet humans remained calm. They did not panic, they did not rush. They observed. They prepared. They waited. And in that waiting they held the greatest power in the galaxy. The power to restore order, or to watch the chaos consume everything. Ethan looked at the stars and spoke quietly to Laura. "This is the moment the galaxy will remember. Not because we acted, but because we waited. The absence of humans is more powerful than any fleet, more deadly than any weapon, and soon they will realize it." Laura nodded. "They always underestimate us. They always think patience is weakness. It is not, it is strategy, and the galaxy will learn this lesson the hard way." From the horizon, human fleets moved silently through space, invisible to most. They were ready, watching and waiting. Every decision the council made, every failure they caused was observed. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy entirely. They had simply removed themselves from its mistakes, letting the aliens feel the consequences of their arrogance. And in the quiet of space, as systems collapsed and alien leaders panicked, humanity prepared for the day they would decide to act. That day would come, but only on their terms. For now they watched, and the galaxy suffered the absence of humans, learning slowly that stability had always depended on them.